Back for the weekend. All football's back for the weekend. I know there was, League 2 and a couple of games played in League 1, but it was a bit of a desert last weekend, to put it mildly. It's happening again next month. 3 international breaks between the start of the season and December this year. But let's not stress over that, because football's back and it kicks off tomorrow on Game Day with the Game Day Live launch game, and that is Spurs versus West Ham. And this will get you in a West Ham beating Spurs 7-0 kind of mood.
To Son, edge of the area, skips past the challenge, right-footed into the far corner, and Tottenham Hotspur lead.
We're not at that stage of being a team where things are just going to sort of click all the time.
Absolutely sensational comeback here. Brighton 3, Tottenham 2.
You've got to have in-game management and say at half-time, boys, right, we're winning 2-0, let's shut up shop.
I think they'll struggle to win anything this year, looking at them, because I don't think they're good enough.
There's nothing like when your fans come to the stadium and see you win.
Into the near post, it comes down off the defender and in, and Bowen celebrates. It's another Jared Bowen goal.
We had a very tough start. It's true that in Premier League each match is very tough.
Lopetegui's West Ham side, it looks absolutely no different to David Moyes.
Vicario comes out. Oh, West Ham in the post. James Ward-Prowse, and incredibly, West Ham lead at Tottenham.
So football is back tomorrow. At least Premier League football is back, and it is back with a bang. I'm a West Ham fan, so I'm slightly biased, but I'll park that for our next chat, because we have Chris Cowlin with us. Chris has been on the show before, of course. He's from the Spurs Chat podcast, the host, in fact. And also Sean Whetstone. Welcome back to Sean Whetstone from Moore, as in M-O-O-R-E. And it's not about Patrick Moore and just a podcast. He's the host of that. Good morning, gentlemen. Let's start with you, Chris, first of all, if we may. I mean, Spurs are, I'd imagine, a brilliant side to watch if you're a neutral, but a frustrating side, I'd imagine, more than frustrating to follow. And the most recent result, I'm thinking what you're saying, was that rather calamitous capitulation to Brighton. 3-2. I mean, that was a bizarre result.
Yeah, it's been a very mixed season, Paul, so far. But, of course, we beat Everton, Brentford, and a very impressive win at Manchester United at Old Trafford a couple of weeks ago. But it is fair to say that the other games that we have played in the Premier League this season, we should have won. We should have picked up more points. We have played decent, entertaining football. But I think that, to add a bit of balance to it, Ange Postecoglou is still going through this rebuild at Spurs. We can see progression. We can see decent, entertaining football. But, yeah, we can't lose games like that at Brighton like we did a couple of weeks ago. We do need to do a lot better.
And what happened there? I mean, it was just, I thought, baffling, because you seem to have the game on the scruff of the neck and things seemed to be going fine, and then suddenly it was almost like none of the players seemed to know what they were doing or where they were meant to be.
Absolutely. We were 2-0 up at half-time. We thought it was going to be a 6th consecutive win in all competitions, and of course conceding 3 goals in the second half was very, very disappointing. We can't let things like that happen. Defensively, we need to do a lot better, but I think that our biggest problem this season so far is not converting the chances, and we've created so many chances in the final third. So we do need to do a lot better all round. But as I say, to add a bit of balance, I think that we are still going through this rebuild. We are still going through, difficult times. But I do expect, Tottenham to progress under Postecoglou, and I think it's just a matter of time.
What went through your mind when you heard about the appointment of Brighton's appointment of their new manager, who's 11 years old?
He's a very decent manager, Paul. I think that's very disrespectful.
No, I'm just saying. For me, it was being in the twilight of my years, I just thought this is it's a revelation. Brighton are good for thinking outside the box like that. But what is he? I think he's got players on the. I think one of his goalies is older than him.
Yeah, he's 31, but he's a great manager, a great young manager coming into the Premier League, and he changed things up at half time. Yeah. I think there was a lot of criticism from a lot of Spurs fans that Postecoglou didn't change things earlier on.
It's who you are. It's who you are.
Well, it's who we are, but of course we have progressed. We are playing in Europe this season. We've done well so far in the cup competitions, and as I said, we have played well in all Premier League games. We should have picked up more points, but it is unacceptable, in the words of Ange Postecoglou, it is unacceptable to lose a game like that at Brighton.
He's the host of More Than Just a Podcast, and both the podcasts, that's Chris's Spurs Chat and More Than Just a Podcast, available from all good podcast providers. And if you're looking for something extra to listen to, and you're fed up to the back teeth with me, either of those two is fantastic. Sean, the Ipswich result was a kind of confidence booster, but it was, if we'd lost to Ipswich, you kind of think that maybe questions would be being asked about Lopetegui, because they're pretty much, as we know, newcomers almost seem to be destined at the moment to be going back down again. How would you identify what needs to happen at West Ham to give us some kind... I mean, I'm just nervous I'm going to be worried about relegation again by Christmas.
Yeah, we've brought in 9 new players. We've got a new head coach, not a manager, a new head coach who's got a different way of playing. It always was going to be a bit difficult, and fans are always going to be on the back. It's good to get the first home win. Yes, it's against Ipswich, but they did really well against Aston Villa, so it wasn't a given, and I thought we played really well, and it was nice to get that first home win. But let's remember, Paul, we're unbeaten away from home. Spurs beware. So look, he's got to have time. He's got to get West Ham fans and everyone else has got to give in till Christmas. We're not getting relegated. We're not probably going to finish in the top 6, but I call this a transition year, and I think he's doing all right so far. You know, Fulkrug is still injured this weekend. It's a shame that something we thought would only be a week or two is taking a little bit longer. Obviously, Paquetá has got his own problems and he's made a statement today, but hopefully the team's going to gel. Yeah. I'm fed up with international breaks already. I can't believe West Ham haven't left London yet this season, and we're on our second international break. It's getting boring.
And one more on the way next month, which is just a rizzle, beyond parody.
Ridiculous.
Now, I think we're going to go at them because I think we had our earliest ever Premier League game since the Premier League started, and we've been in it in the game against Ipswich. And Spurs, although they're not quite as bad as they were a couple of seasons ago when they were often turning up, it seemed 20 minutes into the game, a lot of teams this season seem to be kind of vulnerable, if you like, to a very early forceful attack. And I think that's something we're going to have to push on with, I think.
Yeah, we learnt from Brentford, didn't we? Yeah. I mean, how many games have Brentford scored in the first minute and they scored against us? So it was good to see us doing... I mean, it's so unusual. I mean, literally, I only got to my seat in the London Stadium for the Ipswich one. But many people missed the goal because we just don't score early goals. So it was good to settle the nerves. But yeah, I mean, this is a big London derby. You know, it's Spurs Cup final. And we need to go at them, and we need to put pressure on them, and we just hope the Spurs that played Brighton turns up.
Or rather, don't turn up is what you mean.
Or don't turn up.
20 minutes. Well, Chris, you, me and Sean have got one big memory in common. Perhaps less pleasant for you than for me and Sean, because, of course, I think the last time we met at your stadium, it was a interesting result for West Ham, I think I'm right in saying, because we ended up beating you 2-1 coming from behind, did we not?
Well, of course, there have been some dramatic games in the past, but I do expect Spurs to win this game on Saturday. I don't think West Ham have been very good this season. Of course, Lopetegui is his first season in charge at West Ham, but when you look at West Ham's results and the defeats this season against Villa, City, Chelsea, and of course Liverpool in the Cup, you know, whenever you've come up against, you know, decent opposition, top 6 opposition, you know, the results haven't been there, and I'm fully expecting that Spurs get a result on Saturday. And by Sean saying that it's our cup final, it certainly isn't our cup final. West Ham fans always consider it their cup final against Spurs, and I think
maybe we used to, Chris, but now, of course, we're the only British side to have won the Europa Conference, the most prestigious. Man City have never done it, have they? Man United, no. Liverpool, not a chance.
I feel completely outnumbered on here.
Okay, well, we're not. I didn't mean it in that way at all. Because what I did want to ask you about was a couple of other teams. My producer Alex Irons is a Fulham fan, and when they first got promotion back up, he'd have settled for 17th on day one. This season, they seem to be possessed by the devil of football, but in a positive way. And, you know, it's an unusual charm, I think, for football, is the point I'm trying to make, Chris. It's like, even against, I mean, you know, Man United, they can be erratic. Your performance against them was fantastic, I thought. And we're seeing similar kind of nibbles away sometimes, even at Man City.
Yeah, well, I think, you know, Tottenham certainly need to go and beat the best sides, and we certainly need to beat our rivals. We certainly need to beat the teams around us, London rivals. We need to beat the teams in the top 6. I think that is going to be, or that certainly has been the problem since Postecoglou has arrived at Spurs. We need to beat the bigger teams if we want to compete in the top 4 and move on as a football club. But I feel like since Postecoglou has come through the door, you know, we have progressed because we are playing in Europe again, which is great to see. A club like Spurs should always be in Europe, but we've got to be beating the teams, you know, the London rivals. We've got to be beating the teams, you know, in these massive games.
Now, I think we have one injury worry, a selection worry, which is Nicholas Fulkrug, I think, Sean. He may have some kind of Achilles problem. But Spurs have got the possibility of running out without their captain. Is that right, Chris? Or have you heard any more on that front?
Heung-min Son and Richarlison will be back for this game, which is great news for us.
Okay.
Not great news.
Darn it! I was really... No, I don't really want anybody injured and stuff. And you are allowed a prediction for this game, but you're allowed a couple each if you like. But before we get to that, we have got, another international break, which is outrageous, I think. And then we've got the January transfer window. Can I ask you each, if we start with you, Sean, what do you think if there were money to spend? I'm not sure how much West Ham are going to splurge. And Spurs also, as we know, sometimes quite close with a shilling. Where do you think your vulnerabilities lie? Start with you, or our vulnerabilities in your case, Sean. What do we think we should be looking out for in January?
Well, I mean, I hate to say it. I mean, we bought 9 in, so we shouldn't be looking, but the strike position, the miss is Duran, I mean, hindsight's a wonderful thing. And I'm told Aston Villa in the end didn't want just 40 million, they wanted 60 million, and they wanted a buyback clause, and they wanted a sell-on clause, and all kinds of things that made it difficult. And fair play to them, they did the right thing by keeping them. We still need a striker. I don't know if Fulkrug is it. But it's a position we've struggled for years in, and we, poor old Danny Ings and Antonio are not the best from the age point of view. They haven't got many years in them, so I would say that's got to be, if Fulkrug isn't going to be the thing, we need a young, hungry striker like Duran who can get us our goals.
And what do you make of Lopetegui's performances so far? I mean, things like in-game management and stuff. I mean, I think you can see what he's trying to do a lot of the time. I just don't know whether the team are buying into it 100%. Yeah,
it's unfair when people call him a Spanish David Moyes. We've seen him use substitutes.
Stop yours. Are you stifling a giggle there, Chris?
Absolutely.
We've seen him be more aggressive. Yeah. We've seen him go for it a bit more. And we've seen him make a substitution. So, look, he's not David Moyes. We don't have the team to suddenly just play like Brazil. So let's give him time, like I said earlier. And I'm going to back the manager 100%.
Sometimes we do have the attitude to play like Brazil, and it's Alan Brazil we're playing like these days. Chris, what do you reckon? The transfer window, and I presume also because you talked about not kind of finishing things off, not sinking those goals. Everyone wants a couple of seasons ago, everybody wanted like an old-fashioned centre-half, it seemed to me. Now it's a striker.
Yeah, I think under Postecoglou, the transfer windows have been pretty decent. The recruitment has certainly changed at Tottenham over this last 12 months or so. But I think in January we will certainly be looking at a number 6, a left back from where your doggy needs to be rested or is injured, suspended, and so on, and a centre forward. For when someone like Solanke needs resting or injury, and of course we've had a lot of injuries to Richarlison, so we certainly need another backup in that area.
And you're allowed 2 predictions if you like. What do you think the score is going to be at the final? So you can say what you'd like it to be if you like, but what do you think realistically it's going to be?
3-1 and 3-1.
There we go, a confident man. Tuesdays at the Chris Cowling for joining us for the Spurs Chat podcast. He's the host. In fact, same question to you then, Sean. So, final whistle blows. Have we hit double figures against the frankly very poor Spurs?
Yeah, my heart says 3-0.
It's about your ticker.
My head says, we'll have to settle for a point, and says it will be a 1-1 draw.
Fantastic stuff from both of you. Great to talk to you again. Good sports as well. That was Chris Cowling from the Spurs Chat podcast. He's the host, of course, and from the More Than Just a Podcast, both available from all good podcast providers. That was Sean Whetstone talking about the big game tomorrow. Game Day Live kicks off with an absolute bang up there in North London. It is Spurs versus West Ham, 12:30 kick-off. Build up, will be build up to it all day. In fact, we'll certainly build up all morning. Have your say immediately after the game when it's ended. I'm going to be watching it in a pub with bated breath. Where are you going to be watching it? 03717223344. We're live till 5.
Andy Goldstein.